Well, one of the key things that I look in a developer is not how much they actually know, but how quickly they are able to learn new things.
Okay.
One of my experiences overall in this field has always been, it's not what I knew when I came in. When I started my business, it was a very funny realization. Between the time that I decided that I'm going to start my own consulting practice and training practice, to the time I actually got around to doing it, I came to realize that everything that I was really good at were things that my clients no longer cared about.
Okay. We are right now at the conference in Krakow. It's DevConf. How do you like it so far?
Oh, it is wonderful. It's always fun to mingle with developers, see their excitement, help them to learn a few things and learn a few things along the way.
Yeah, I really like that too. And which one was your favorite talk so far?
Oh, I've been in and out, so I've got a few. Nothing in particular that I can mention right now.
Okay. But I did like your keynote yesterday. It was really interesting about simplicity. So there you had like really nice war stories. You had a story about a guy who you called on the phone eventually.
Well, building complexity is very easy, and one of the problems we run into often is we have the desire to make things extensible.
Yeah.
But what we don't know is what really we are going to plan for the future, because the future is pretty uncertain, and we build for all this extensibility or the perceived extensibility, and in the end it comes back to haunt us. So the lesson there was, we could make everything absolutely extensible, but there is a cost to it, and there is also inefficiencies that come in when we add layers of abstraction to applications. So my little metaphorical example to the developer was, we could be talking to each other in person, but we shouldn't, because I could be walking away, I could be anywhere in the world, so we should always use a phone to talk to each other, even if we're sitting next to each other like this.
Yeah, I really like this story. I have seen that a lot as well. I mean, many people just end up overcomplicating and over-engineering stuff.
Right.
And sometimes what you think is necessary is not really necessary.
Yeah.
But even when it's necessary, you can sometimes make it much simpler.
It is. Well, one of the approaches that I like to take, realizing more and more, is if we keep things minimalistic, the less we do, then when the time comes to extend it, we are able to extend it much more easily.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the more complexity we build into it, then when we realize that's not the extensibility we want and we need something else, now we have two problems. It has taken us in a different direction than what we wanted to go to, and now it really hurts us to make progress in this other direction that we want to go to. So that becomes really hard to extend overall.
And actually what I realized not long ago, a few years ago, was that sometimes just not introducing an abstraction, even if it seems necessary, is a good practice in some cases, because what I've seen a lot of times that you have the wrong abstraction, and in many cases no abstraction is just better than the wrong abstraction.
Yeah, totally. And sometimes we create abstraction for the sake of creating abstraction. And I won't claim that I have a perfect answer to this, but I feel really agitated when people believe, oh, I've got to really create an abstraction here. How else would you do it? Well, yes, there are ways to do it without having to get dragged into it. And when the problem is relatively simple, we don't have to be compelled to throw in an abstraction after all.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. If you were looking for a developer to hire, what were you looking for? What are the main traits of a developer you want to work with?
Well, one of the key things that I look in a developer is not how much they actually know, but how quickly they are able to learn new things.
Okay.
One of my experiences overall in this field has always been, it's not what I knew when I came in. When I started my business, it was a very funny realization. Between the time that I decided that I'm going to start my own consulting practice and training practice, to the time I actually got around to doing it, I came to realize that everything that I was really good at were things that my clients no longer cared about.
Okay.
They
what were those things?
well, back then I was really specializing in programming in C++ and in building systems that required quite a bit of engineering and scientific solutions.
Okay.
And so I said, hey, this is great. I'm really getting good at this. I should start a business, training people, maybe in getting really effective with C++ and applying, some of the solutions that I've learned over the years. And starting a business requires, first of all, deciding whether you want to do it, if you have the ability, and there's so many other things that you have to go through. And by the time I got to that point and decided, hey, I'm going to start doing training and consulting in this area, I realized that a lot of the clients that I came across said, hey, we know you are fairly good in what you do, but our needs are very different than what you have specialized in. Can you help us in these other areas? Maybe we need a little bit on this one, but here's where we are shifting to.
Okay.
So the agility to really learn and apply new things is as important, if not even more important, than what you already know. And I think that's what I look for in developers. Throwing a problem at them, there are two things I would look for. How do they approach the problem?
Okay.
How are they willing to learn, things they may not know? And it reminds me of experiences where, when I was in the hiring situation for clients, I remember one experience when a developer came in, and we were doing a design that particular morning, teasing out some ideas. So one of the managers said, hey, we are currently in the design meeting, if you want to just come and participate. And the developer said, yeah, absolutely. And then he walked in, and then we were working on something, and this was in .NET at the time. And suddenly, we were saying, hey, here's how we're going to implement it, and we're going to go along this way. And then suddenly the developer said, no, that won't work. And I said, well, I've actually used it, but it'll work, and here's why we are thinking we should exploit this particular feature. And he said, nope, that won't work. And this was an interview. So I said, you know what, I could be wrong, absolutely. So I'll go back and try it.
Enlighten me. Right?
And maybe you should go back and try it too. He said, no, I'm absolutely confident that would not absolutely work at all.
Wow.
I said, well, okay then, so here's a challenge for you. Go home and try. And if it truly doesn't work, consider hired. and that is what really made the difference in this case, is the absolute assertion about something. Not only was he wrong, but
he was really confident
that he was right.
Yeah.
And then that evening he sends an email saying, okay, I did try this approach, and you know what, it did work, but I still believe that I'm the best developer to hire. It's like, no, sorry, no, it's not going to happen. and I think that's where is the little bit of humility is important in developers too. Yes, we want to be confident about what we do, but at the same time to give that benefit of doubt and say, hey, why don't we roll our hands together? Why don't we give it a try? It's not about me versus you, but it's about figuring out solutions, and the willingness to even open up and try. This kind of goes back to the intolerance we talked about earlier. And I think that's important. So how quickly can you learn? How quickly can you apply what you know? And the other thing I would also expect is anybody can throw solutions together, but creating a product that is maintainable requires a lot more than throwing things together. Quality is important. How do we really make things maintainable? And I, to me, the word agility without the word sustainability is meaningless.
Yeah, because you can do some things agile and then just
not be able to sustain that pace.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people, want to be agile, and the misguided word in agile, I think, is the word quick.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be quick. I could be driving really, really fast, putting everybody in the car and around, at risk. Speed without sustainability is a disaster. And I think the key with agility is sustainable speed. So I would also look for how good this developer is in creating sustainable code. Do they care about quality of what they do? Do they think about ramification of the solutions they are creating? Are they creating code that is easier to, I can create code really fast, but the real cost in coding is not in writing it, but it's in maintaining it. When people have to understand the code. And I would ask the question, are you considering the effort it takes to maintain this code? And in general, when it comes to hiring, I never want to ask people questions because it's boring. It's
then what do you do?
It's throwing stuff that is irrelevant. I think invite the person and say, let's work together. Here's what we're working on right now. Let's pair up and work together. Yeah, and I think we learn a great deal from a person when we pair and work together than to ask silly questions on how do you solve this problem in theory. And also, when you ask people questions, there's use to it, certainly, absolutely. But when we sit down and see that the person has the ability to speak in abstraction, but at the same time has the ability to dive into code when needed, and has the ability to surface back up to discuss concepts, that ability to live in these both worlds of abstraction and realization and implementation is extremely important.
Yeah,
that's what makes it a well-rounded developer. When somebody can only code, it doesn't help for them to conceptualize. There are people who can conceptualize but cannot get anything realistically done. And I think both of those skills are extremely important.
I agree. And actually, I also like doing pairing up with people during interviews. It's a great approach.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here.
Was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching this episode. I hope it earned your subscription. But while you're here, let me show you something. The people behind me are playing a game called Lean Poker. It's a fun and exciting way to learn how you can deliver value much faster than you have ever imagined. It's exciting. The link is in the description. Check it out if you want to support this channel.